in a friendly, neighborly manner, 365 or 366 days if it's a leap year, 24/7. And today we have our live stream lecture, as we do every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we've got a very fun topic that I think everyone will enjoy. I am discussing the history of Mother's Day and a little bit about Father's Day too, although I might save that for a live stream lecture in June. And so I will be doing that, probably take about half an hour or so of a live stream to cover the origins of Mother's Day, how it's celebrated around the world, not just in the United States, as I've been doing a lot of research there. And I will also be discussing about the way it took root in the United States and how it came to be celebrated mainly on the second Sunday in May and all of that great stuff, although other areas of the world, as Harry can certainly tell you, is my wonderful moderators like Harry and Rodolfo. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. They will be putting up the social media handles, video links, all of that stuff. But as Harry can tell you, the British and many of the former British colonies do not celebrate Mother's Day the same day that the Americans do. So we will be talking about Mother's Day. We'll be talking about its origins. We'll be talking about Anna Jarvis and how she developed the modern concept of the holiday and why she hated the holiday that she created. We'll be talking about Field Marshal Philippe Pétain and how he made it a national holiday in France, and how coalescing with the Nazis helped make Mother's Day, believe it or not, a holiday in France in the 1940s. So we'll be talking about a lot of that and how that has impacted the celebration of Mother's Day. Obviously, yesterday, for many people in Central America, was Mexican Mother's Day. It's also celebrated in El Salvador and Guatemala. We'll be discussing that. So I do these live stream lectures every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, at the recommendation of my great moderator, Harsonet, we will be discussing and I will be analyzing the impact of the Reformation on European culture, particularly Western European culture, and its extensions to the United States and Canada and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to all of this. I think it's going to be an exciting series of live stream lectures. We had a great Q&A yesterday despite some technical difficulties. Fortunately, it's not nearly as hot. I'm not nearly as sweaty. And my phone is unlikely to shut down due to emergency high temperatures. But if you enjoy history and social studies, consider liking and subscribing. We do Q&As, Ask Me Anythings, every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we will be doing a Q&A at the end. So ask me anything about Mother's Day or any other particular historical or social studies topic you are interested in. And a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I hope you are enjoying a wonderful day of gratitude and celebration. Maybe if you're in Spain, a common tradition there is you're not going out to eat, or you're not cooking, no mother cooks. They go out to eat and their families present them with roses or other bouquets of flowers at the restaurants, and that's a very popular tradition in Spain. Countries like Spain, Canada, the United States, Fiji, the Democratic Republic the Central Republic of Africa, Cambodia, China, they are all celebrating Mother's Day today. Today is the most common day to celebrate Mother's Day, but it's not the only one, as I will discuss in the live stream lecture portion. Then afterwards, I'm doing a bonus Q&A, Ask Me Anything. So we'll be here for about an hour or so. So you get to ask me anything you would like about history and social studies after I delve into the history, the traditions, the practices, and the customs of one of the world's most popular and expensive holidays, Mother's Day. Mother's Day outpaces the spending of Father's Day. I think it's like 3-1. And Mother's Day came first and has more historic origins than Father's Day. I'll discuss Father's Day a little bit, but I'm probably going to save that, like I said, for a live stream lecture in June. So thank you for joining the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. If you enjoy history, social studies, and the like, consider liking and subscribing, following me on the social medias that we put down in the chat. And I am not wearing my customary smoking jacket. It's still a little too hot for that, but I will be hopefully next week when things cool down. There's supposed to be rain out here. So thank you for joining us. Really great to see Pikaside. Great to see Bonjour, Croatian. I will be happy to discuss these countries and stuff like that and any of your questions related to history and social studies in the second half. So for the first half hour, just buckle up and enjoy some history and background about Mother's Day. Anyways, in the meantime, consider liking and subscribing if you're enjoying that, and make sure to shout out your moms, your grandmothers, whoever has been particularly impactful for you. So thank you so much. I'm so glad to see everybody, and I'm so glad that you are here. So anyways, Mother's Day in the United States has officially been a holiday for over a century. It originally became an official holiday in 1914 when President Wilson commemorated the federal celebration of the day. But believe it or not, Mother's Day as a tradition stretches back longer than that. Festivals, religious ceremonies, celebration of motherhood is one of the most common things in human history all throughout different parts of the globe. The vast majority of world languages, to one extent or another, that use a Latin alphabet, or sorry, the Arabic alphabet, Arabic? No, Latin alphabet, use M to represent the word mother. Madre in Spanish, for instance, mater in Latin. So the Latin alphabet, the languages that use that, the vast majority use an M word to describe motherhood or mothers. And so mom, mommy, mama, things like that are all, mummy, mum, as the Brits like to say, are all just examples of how that M has been very powerful to represent matriarchy and matriarchal influence on people's lives throughout all of human history. And despite the fact that Father's Day is a very important and popular holiday in many regards, there's nothing quite like Mother's Day in its celebration and its history. The most ancient celebrations of Mother's Day in the Western world started in ancient Greece. So the ancient Greeks obviously got a lot of their culture and their understandings of how the world worked from their mythological beliefs about the Greek gods. Now, the Greek gods were more superheroes than anything else. They weren't imperfect beings with all-knowing power and all-powerful. They relied on each other. They worked with each other. They betrayed each other. They hurt and fought each other. It was very common. So the Greek gods that you are probably familiar with, Zeus, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. If you've seen the Disney movie Hercules, if you've played or watched Clash of Titans, or if you've played God of War, stuff like that, those Greek gods are more tantamount to superheroes. They are fallible. They are not supposed to be perfect. They are not comparable to any sort of the mythologies are not necessarily comparable to the actions of deities in other established world religions. The different gods throughout the different eras of Greek history, the ones that you are most familiar with are called the Olympians. That's Zeus and all of his cadre. The group that came before it were called the Titans. The Titans were extraordinarily powerful and strong gods in their own right, who were eventually overthrown and punished by the Olympians. The goddess that is celebrated as the mother of the gods is a Titan named Rhea. Rhea was the wife of the god of time, Kronos. Kronos had a habit of eating all of his children because he feared they would overthrow him. His last son that he had was Zeus. Zeus was hidden away by Rhea so that Kronos would not be able to kill him, and eventually Zeus overthrew Kronos, emptied out his belly, and freed the Olympians, Hades, and the rest of the gods. So why am I saying all of this? Why am I giving you a mythology lesson, something you might have heard? Because the celebration of Rhea as the mother of all the gods, and therefore by extension the mother in many ways of humanity and of nature and of things like this and all the things that the Greek gods were celebrated for, made celebrations of Rhea the most common way for the ancient Greeks to celebrate motherhood and mothers. So this is thousands of years ago, BC era, where the ancient Greeks were celebrating their mothers, and celebrating mothers is a custom that is common. There are many African tribal societies that were matriarchal, where motherhood was an extremely important facet of their day-to-day life and culture. Different Bantu peoples did this in different sections of Africa that they migrated to over the millennia BC and into the early AD period. So celebration of motherhood is popular in animistic religions, Shintoism, any sort of religion that has some sort of reincarnation pattern or worship of elders or worship of ancestors has a lot of inclusion of the worship and understanding of reverence towards mothers in the past and in the present. And so motherhood has always been an extraordinarily important part of different world religions, cultures, and places. In medieval Europe, the development of Western Catholicism and the particular emphasis on the importance of the Virgin Mary as the mother of Jesus, the mother of God, a mediator, a high-ranking member, if you will, of the Christian church, who is obviously blessed above all women, according to Catholicism, led to the glorification of motherdom and motherhood and women through Mary, making her the mother of all the faithful, the mother of all the living, all of these different titles being applied to Mary as the mother of Jesus and the mother of the church. So in the medieval period, Western Europe developed ways to celebrate motherhood by celebrating the Virgin Mary and then applying it to their own mothers. These traditions became popular in places like France and England. In England, for instance, the fourth Sunday of Lent was known as Laterate Sunday. And Lent is the period, the 7 weeks between Ash Wednesday and Easter. And during that time, right in the middle of that period, the fourth Sunday, mothers in England would people who had grown up and left their homes would return to their mothers and their hearth and to their home and to their families of origin, and were allowed to travel during the fourth Sunday of Lent, Latter-eight Sunday. That led that to becoming a celebration of mothers and families, and led eventually to British Mother's Day, which is why in the UK to this day, Mother's Day is celebrated in March. I think it was March 25th this year. That has also, interestingly enough, taken root in many of Britain's former colonies, particularly in Africa, with places like Nigeria and Egypt celebrating their Mother's Day on that fourth Sunday of Lent in March. It's also in I believe it's also in Qatar and other places. I don't know about India. I think it might be celebrated there in India too. But interestingly enough, because of the global dominance and influence of the British language and empire, their customs and traditions spread by force and sometimes by desire to many of their colonies, which in the post-colonial world, even after they got rid of British control of their land, they still opted to celebrate those holidays that fourth Sunday of Lent. So the British celebrate Mother's Day, and the UK celebrates Mother's Day, Ireland celebrates Mother's Day, Egypt celebrates Mother's Day in March. The earliest celebrations in the year for Mother's Day come from Norway, which celebrates it in February, which is probably a tribute to Frigga of Norse mythology, I believe she's the wife of Odin and the mother of all beings. So that's a common way to celebrate in Scandinavian culture. That's the roots and origins of their matriarchal symbol and their celebration of mothers. And in Norway, they celebrate it the second Sunday in February, which is the earliest of any country in the world, and probably on par with Valentine's Day. I believe they do celebrate Valentine's Day in Norway. So Norway celebrates it really early. Britain is next up. Then you get Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador, which celebrated on May 10th. In the 1920s, after the United States had already begun its practice of celebrating Mother's Day, the Mexican government, movements in Mexico began the desire to celebrate mothers in Mexico. And these traditions also passed to their neighbors in Guatemala and El Salvador to the south. But instead of basing it on the second Sunday in May, they decided to have a celebration on a set day, May the 10th. So it's always May the 10th. That is Mexican Mother's Day. And it is celebrated by a large number of Latinos in America to this day, as the United States has a large and growing Hispanic population. So that's what you see. So that's Central America. By the way, if you're liking this, remember this Friendly Neighborhood History channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. That's how easy it is to become a friendly neighborhood historian. I have long-form content dropping every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, short-form content dropping every day, and these live stream lectures Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and my live stream Q&As where you can ask a historian, me, anything you would like about history, social studies, and the like, every Saturday and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So please subscribe, like the live, subscribe for more. So anyways, getting back to it now that I'm done with all the plugging. Then of course there are other countries that have different celebrations in April and things like that. But the earliest is in Norway. The British celebrate it in March, and many of their former colonies. And now we get to the Americans. And why do they celebrate it, as does most of the world, probably due to their interconnections with the United States culturally and things like that. But the second Sunday of May has become the de facto overwhelming majority celebration of Mother's Day throughout the entire world. Mothers in China are being celebrated today, as well as mothers in Papua New Guinea, Canada, and the United States. The main reason for the celebration in the United States is a woman named Anna Jarvis. Anna Jarvis was the daughter of a woman named Ann Jarvis, who was a celebrated icon and leader in the women's rights movement, who believed women should get the right to vote, join. She was a suffragette, a popular movement in the late 19th century. Women should get the right to vote. Women should be able to run for office. Women should be in the workforce. Women should be paid equally. Women deserve workers' rights. Women deserve to have their voices heard politically and socially, and they are not secondary to a man in anything. So Ann Jarvis was a strong leader in this movement and inspired her daughter in many of her activities to follow in her footsteps of being a suffragette, advocating for women's political, economic, and social emancipation in the wake of a very patriarchal society, the United States, in the late 19th and early 20th century. When Jarvis's mother died in 1908, she decided to memorialize her by celebrating not just her efforts, but the efforts of all women by having a Woman's Day, or a Mother's Day, to celebrate her mother and the contributions of all mothers at her local women's club, a women's organization in Grafton, West Virginia. This what the proceeds of a celebration, of a commemoration. It was meant to be a solemn occasion. It was meant to celebrate women and their impact on the workforce and on society and their contributions to the world, and to memorialize mothers who had passed away. This celebration was supposed to gain a lot of attention for women's rights and the women's movement, and was supposed to be a solemn and serious occasion, not one of frivolity and merriment. So that raised money for different women's events and movements, and eventually gained steam very, very quickly. Interestingly enough, also in West Virginia, a local church in memorializing the death of about a few hundred, I think it might have been up to 600 coal miners in a mine cave-in, and West Virginia is known for its coal mining. In June, a local church commemorated the fathers who were lost then, and that is the origins of the American celebration of Father's Day. Although Europeans were celebrating Father's Day with the feast of Saint Joseph, who was the father of Jesus in the Gospels, in Catholic countries in the 16th century. So those are some of the origins. Notice how Mother's Day has a much more extensive and deep history, owing to figures like Rhea or Frigga. But you also have got the Virgin Mary, who has a more predominant role in Christian theology and worship than her husband, Saint Joseph. So, but anyway, so Mother's Day and Father's Day started at about the same time in the United States. Father's Day kind of is a copycat of memorializing and remembering solemnly the lives of men who were lost in their work and those who were fathers among them, just as Mother's Day memorialized the loss of a mother and her impact on the women's movement. Jarvis's celebration became popular in local celebrations all throughout the area. Just like Laterite Lent was a celebration of mothers and families in Great Britain and things like that. These celebrations were not official. They were local festivals. They were commemorations. They were meetings. They were religious celebrations sometimes. Just taking time unofficially to celebrate and enjoy the family and the structure of the family in their areas. But the Mother's Day took off and came in like a wrecking ball. Only 6 years after its first celebration, Woodrow Wilson in 1914, as I said before, made it a holiday that the Americans celebrate to this day. I don't believe I think it's a national holiday. It's not a federal holiday. So the following Monday, people don't have off from work or something like that. It is not celebrated on the weekday following, just like Easter is celebrated with Easter Monday. But regardless, the holiday became extraordinarily popular and became a way to celebrate mothers and to have joy and merriment, food, flowers, gift cards, things like this. It's one of the most expensive holidays in the world, and all of this became extraordinarily popular in the United States during the 1910s and 20s, which interestingly enough led one person in particular to absolutely hate the holiday that was supposed to be commemorating and memorializing and mourning the loss of great women and mothers in society, and not just celebrating mothers who were still alive with fancy brunches and expensive gift cards. That was Anna Jarvis herself. And she became one of the biggest critics of the celebration in the 1920s, believing that it was a sham that did not actually do what it was supposed to do, despite women gaining the right to vote in 1920 and the women's movement continuing to make inroads in society throughout the rest of the 20th century as Mother's Day became more and more popular. So, anyways, that is the basic root of where you get Mother's Day in American society in the 20th century. And many countries that have similar backgrounds to America and have had a lot of interconnectedness with America politically, socially, economically, and culturally celebrate Mother's Day on the second Sunday in May, including the Greeks themselves, who had some of the most ancient celebrations of Mother's Day with commemorating Rhea in the BC era. So, where do we go from there? Now, there are more countries that I have mentioned and areas of the world that I have mentioned that celebrate Mother's Day later than that. The latest country to celebrate Mother's Day is Malawi, the Eastern African country, which celebrates their mothers on October 15th. The last major group I'm going to talk about is the French and French subsidiaries, which are former colonial eras. The French were celebrating Mother's Day. Oh, by the way, the British institutionalized Mother's Day in 1911 as it caught on, as they found out what the Americans were up to. And by the 1920s, the French were celebrating it. By 1929, it had become a popular holiday for the French to celebrate it. The French also celebrated it based on medieval practices. Theirs was the fourth Sunday, not of or the last Sunday in May, as long as it did not interfere with the Christian celebration of Pentecost. In the Christian calendar, and the Catholic calendar in particular, as France was a majority Catholic country, Pentecost is the seventh Sunday after Easter, and it celebrates when the Holy Spirit supposedly inspired the church in the book of Acts of the Apostles, the fifth book of the New Testament. And so as long as it wasn't on that Christian celebration and holiday, which is a carryover from the Old Testament, by the way, and the Jews celebrate Shavuot, which is a parallel in many ways, the French society would celebrate their mothers on the fourth Sunday in May. During the Easter and Lenten seasons, which are 14 weeks that start with Ash Wednesday and end with Pentecost, the Christian church, interestingly enough, celebrated mothers a lot. In Britain and Britain's area and the UK and in France. So interestingly enough, believe it or not, one of the most ghoulish people in French history is actually responsible for the commemoration and the enshrinement of Mother's Day as a federal holiday for the French, the fourth Sunday in May. And that is Field Marshal Philippe Pétain. Philippe Pétain was a war hero from what I believe is the Second World War. Most of you believe that's the First World War, the Great War, 1914 to 1918. He was the hero of the Somme, one of the great battles of the Western Front, where the French were able to withstand a German attack on their trenches, as trench warfare was quite common during that war. Yes, I'm talking about mothers and I'm talking about warfare. History is interesting because it's all connected one way or another. So Philippe Pétain was a war hero and seen as a national hero by the French for a long time, and celebrated in many ways like mothers were celebrated. When the Germans in the Third World War, or what you might call the Second World War, went in and defeated the French, going around the Maginot Line and getting into Paris in 1940, knocking France out of the war, they established a puppet government that would basically represent Nazi ideology and extreme right-wing traditional values, help them scope out communists, Jews, and others who they deemed to be undesirable, and they used the puppet government of the Vichy French to control French politics, the French economy, and make sure that the Nazis were basically running the country indirectly through the Vichy government throughout the rest of the war. And they put up Field Marshal Pétain as the leader of the government, and Pétain became the dictator of Vichy France, with close ties to Adolf Hitler and many fascist policies implemented in French society. One of these was a demand for hypernatalism, the birth of native French people and only native French people, in order to replenish the society and make it prosperous and wealthy and full of French life and French exceptionalism. So Pétain, in order to do this, decided that celebrations of the family were extraordinarily important. So as awful as he was in so many ways, one indirectly good thing that he accomplished as dictator of Vichy France was the commemoration and enshrinement of the fourth Sunday of Mother's Day to be French Mother's Day, the fourth Sunday of May to be French Mother's Day. So that is why the French do not celebrate it for another 2 weeks. Interestingly enough, the French colonies of the time, France had a massive empire in West Africa, went along with it, whereas French colonies in Southeast Asia, such as Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, do not celebrate it then. They celebrate it usually on the second Sunday in May. But the French colonies in Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, which later gained their independence, Niger, Morocco, they all celebrate it on the fourth Sunday of May as well, showing the influence of colonial government even after the end of the Second, or what I call the Third World War. Haiti and the Dominican Republic, who had already gained their independence, also celebrate it because of post-colonial ties to the French culturally and customarily with Indian history. And thank you so much, Hope, for subscribing. I hope you all have subscribed by now and you're enjoying this. So Pétain made the French, made the fourth Sunday in May the official French Mother's Day, and that expanded to its colonies, which is fascinating that British Mother's Day expands to its colonies and French Mother's Day expands to many of its former colonies. So in Mali, they will be celebrating their mothers in 2 weeks, but in Egypt, they are celebrating them today, interestingly enough. So Moving past that, that is the general outline of what Mother's Day looks like and how it is celebrated throughout the entire world. And let me see here. What else was I going to say? Poland celebrates it in May, so does Czechoslovakia. Certain areas, Switzerland does not celebrate it, I think, until June. And then it goes down the line. There are some countries that celebrate in July. And of course, Malawi in East Africa is the last country to celebrate it, and they celebrate it October 15th. So Norway at the beginning of the year, second Sunday in February, and Malawi near the end of the year, and in between are all the major celebrations, with obviously the second Sunday in May taking the lion's share of celebrations. And you can't see this quite right, but this is the list, and this is today. Ecuador, Estonia, Croatia, areas like that. Australia will celebrate theirs, the Aussies. And I'm gonna put this up on my channel so you guys can see it. But I did a couple of videos about that already. I'm gonna do a couple more because it's really fascinating. I'm gonna write a Substack about it. So if you like reading what I'm writing and my thoughts culturally, geopolitically, and historically, along with what I talk about on the channel and do on my videos, please subscribe to my Substack, and you can read my articles. Even if you don't like the sound of my voice, maybe you like my articulation, and so you can enjoy my printed works there. And my Patreon, where you get bonus content like the history of Mother's Day, which is a video I made on this channel a year ago, which will be posted there today, fresh, so that you can see it. So anyways, I hope you guys really enjoyed learning about this. It's a shorter live stream lecture. It's a fascinating topic, the way the world celebrates their Mother's Days. Again, to all the mothers out there that are watching, thank you so much for being who you are and doing what you do. We celebrate you and we appreciate you today. I will have a little bit more on Father's Day in June. I gave you a little bit today. Fathers, we haven't forgotten about you. And for all the mothers who are to be soon, like the wife of my dear moderator, M, who is about to be a mother, we celebrate you today. For all those women who are pregnant or are planning to get pregnant soon, you will be mothers very soon, and we are very happy to see that. So, obviously many condolences to people who have lost moms, mothers who have lost children, things like that. We are very sorry. We grieve with you as much as we celebrate all mothers and what they have done and what they have been through. So, I hope you guys really enjoyed this, and I know it was a shorter lecture, but I really wanted to get through that and explain it, and there's just so much fascinating history. And again, yes, like Green Hippo is saying, a happy Mother's Day to everybody, and that is a pinned message. Do something really great for your mom today, everybody, and tell them about the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. Maybe that's a way to give them a gift, or show them the live stream lecture. They can learn about the history. They may find that fascinating. So for the next half hour or so, I will be answering. We are going to go into the Q&A because we had so many extra questions yesterday that I wasn't able to answer. I'm going to be answering all of your questions related to history, social studies, and the like for the next half hour or so. So the second part of this, usually it's a full hour lecture, will be my Q&A. So for the next half hour or so, if you have any questions relating to history, social studies, Mother's Day, things like that, I will be happy to answer it. Hopefully you garnered that I know a little bit more about history beyond just Mother's Day if that's your first time here. And for those who are always here, I appreciate seeing you. Make sure to show some love to my moderators, Rodolfo and Harry, who are doing a wonderful job with the chat. So yeah. And Substack is an app. There is a link to my Substack on my YouTube homepage, as well as links to my social medias, X, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. Can you do a video on the Crazy Twins and the Firm? The Cray Twins and the Firm. I don't know much about it, but I should probably do a video on that, Harry. And hope your mom had a good Mother's Day back in March. Pavan, what was the last movie I watched? I'm trying to think about what the last movie I watched was. I'm supposed to see Goodfellas. I've never seen it before. I'm supposed to see that in a couple of days. Just sit down, pop on Netflix, and watch it. Do you do history on illnesses, like the history of the plague, the Middle Ages, like the Chinese history? What type of history or things? Flora, I do history about all sorts of different things. I have done videos about plague and talking about plagues, the 4 different humors, medieval understandings of plagues. I'm particularly a European historian, but I do history of all over the world. I do talk about China and some of the diseases they've had to do. You might want to check out my Chinese Imperial Dynasty series. There's an entire video on it. And again, I drop long form videos every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so please go check that out. Yeah. Will Willow, Google's new quantum computer, bring back entities from the dimension it operates in? I certainly hope not. That sounds a little too scary to me. Why did Persians contribute far more to Islamic Golden Age than the Arabs? I wouldn't say that it was the Persians so much. It was Persian art, architecture, Tapestries, rugs, things like that, obviously are a huge part in those beautiful geometric patterns. If you've ever seen a Persian rug, you look at the geometric patterns, that is supposed to represent the ancient Islamic belief of the order of creation brought by Allah. They do not like to depict Allah. They do not like to depict religious leaders like Muhammad or Jesus. They love to depict, however, the balance, the beauty in nature and order, that the uniformity in nature created by their God. So the Islamic Golden Age is under the Abbasid Caliphate, which was stationed in Baghdad, and it included the Persians. Obviously, the Persians were part of that, but not completely. The contributions were from all around. They had Muslim scholars, mathematicians, and writers contributing, translating ancient works, preserving ancient works, contributing new ideas about math and medicine, and that was from Al-Andalus, which was Spain, to Egypt, to the Levant, to the Middle East. So it's not just the Persians. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Why Laos is the most bombed country? A lot of that was the United States bombing Laos in the early 1970s as they tried to root out and defang the North Vietnamese and their supply routes into South Vietnam during the Vietnamese War. And Pico Side, it's great to see you. You'd love to see you do Belgium history, witch trials. So I've done stuff on the witch trials before, like the Salem witch trials. Something people do not understand about the Salem witch trials, they were a carryover from the Europeans. The Europeans blamed many of the illnesses, political upheavals, and religious divisions of their day in the 16th and 17th century on witches. So the persecution of witches was a huge extension of the Inquisition, where trying heretics and killing them was common. Not as common as we might think, but a common facet of everyday life. And Belgium's history is actually kind of on the shorter side, but created by the Europeans after the fall of Napoleon in order to create a buffer zone between France and Germany. It used to be the Austrian Netherlands. Current book you're reading. I continue to say this every single time because I haven't finished it because it's 600 pages and it's intricate, but Lucy Wooding's book on Tudor England, quite fascinating. Do you know astrological history, zodiac? A little bit. Obviously, a lot of it's based on the Greek name constellations, the Gemini, the twins, for instance. So, and yes, like Harry is saying, make sure to like and subscribe. Can I talk about Mahatma Gandhi? Obviously, one of the most important people, if not in the 20th century, then of all of history, basically took the civil disobedience ideas he read about in Great Britain, where he was educated, took it back to the Indian National Congress, organized hunger strikes, protests, and peaceful demonstrations that it would eventually, through attrition, wear down the British and help gain India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh its independence from the British Empire. So yeah, I love Indian history. Fascinating. Thank you for joining us from Korea. Thank you so much. Hey Sam. Let me see here. How about the history? Besides asking, how about the history about the U.S. gold standard on the dollar? I recently viewed a video of Richard Nixon addressing the U.S. public. It's supposed to be temporary. Should we put our money on the gold standard? Bitcoin might replace the gold standard. Right now, the U.S. dollar, the global reserve currency, the strongest monetary source in the world, has nothing backing it up, which is frightening, especially with rampant printing of money and inflation. Thank you, Sam. Tell us something about Hitler. Was he really that bad? Yes, and actually he was worse than you think. And thank you, Liam. I appreciate that. I will take that as a badge of honor. Grayson, I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, Liam. Thank you. And we've got multiple Liams today. What a great name. Very popular. Why does Henry VIII get a bad rap, considering he was actually a good king? Like, he whipped France, he revolutionized healthcare, he created the English Navy. It's because of I love Lucy Wooding's take on this. The first 20 years of Henry VIII's reign, gold standard, one of the best English kings ever. The last 18 years, the murdering, the upheaval, the back and forth, the overthrowing of the monasteries, which were really unpopular, the mini-mouth approach to dealing with the Reformation from a man who was still himself a Catholic despite forcing England into Protestantism, obviously hurt his prestige. The murdering, the betrayals, the paranoia runs deep for Henry VIII. Yeah. So if I want to learn history, tell me a country whose history I should most read. Oh, that's fascinating. I think it depends where you want to start. If you want to start in ancient history, China is obviously where you go, or India itself. The Mesopotamians, Egyptians, these are the most ancient civilizations in the world. If you want to learn history people don't know about, look at the Native Americans. Their history overall in the different groups of Native Americans is not as detailed as it necessarily should be. So, In English history, the British end up influencing things all over the world. So that's something to consider too. Can you talk about what would happen if the fictional zombie virus happened in real life? And I'm talking about cordyceps fungus. Well, then it's get it. I don't know. Hopefully, I don't become a zombie. Legalize witch burning. You're on the more extreme side. Don't know about Israel. What about Israel? Great. Another person asking me about Israel. Yesterday was so much fun. Work 40 years and at the end your value has been debased so much for the point you've worked for decades and free. That's because of inflation. Inflation does that because savings lose value. What's your education? I don't have a PhD yet, but I have a master's. So you are talking to a bona fide historian, but I believe anyone who studies history and loves it can be a historian and can be a friendly neighborhood historian if they like and subscribe. What do you think about Gaddafi when he tried to make that Muslim gold-backed currency? I don't know much about that. Gaddafi obviously gets a bad rap, and for many good reasons. But the problem I have with Middle Eastern, North African, South Asian, all of this get rid of all of these dictatorships. You repealed it, but what did you replace it with? Libya does not seem like it's doing any better than it was 20 years ago. What do you think on Israel in sum up? I think Israel, obviously a fascinating history. One of the oldest Abrahamic religion and the two other major Abrahamic religions come from Israel. You can't have a history of the Middle East and the West without Israel and its impact and the impact of the Jewish people. Obviously, you cannot tell the story of Christianity without Judaism. Obviously, Jesus of Nazareth, the most central figure in history, and I'm not saying that from a religious perspective at all. I'm saying if you look at the way the historical impact of Jesus and his beliefs and his teachings, it's monumental. You can't have that without Judaism to one extent or another and the land of Israel. What if the radiation from Bikini Atoll spread into the ocean? Liam's actually asking a great question. Bikini Atoll was the basis of the name of the bikini, but it was where they tested the first, before they invented the bikini, they tested the French tested their first atom bomb. Fortunately, it did not get out of hand, but you would have had something like a Chernobyl. Sensible, educated people do live and do nice, informative talk. When women stream, it's more about body beauty. I mean, if I was a woman, my hope is that I would love history as much as I do now. And there are many wonderful women streamers out there. Nixon had to take us off a gold standard because European countries were hosing us by converting our currency to gold and depleting our reserves. Yeah, the U.S. is also off a silver standard. There's nothing backing up the U.S. dollar, and that's the problem. What is a qubit, pyramid measurement, and how does this apply to quantum computers? I don't know how it applies to quantum computers because A1, I just don't know enough about it. That's why I haven't addressed what you've been saying in the chat, because I'm just not skilled in quantum computing. Obviously, it's right there with AI is big right now. The new Pope said that he thinks that AI is the biggest challenge of our generation, of our lifetimes. A qubit is supposed to be from your forearm to like your tip of your index finger. It's 18 inches, foot and a half. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. His knowledge on multiple subjects is impressive. Liam, I appreciate that as well. It's great to see new people here. Let me see here. If a radiation spread, it would either kill the fish or mutate them, and this would cause the water to be undrinkable. Environmental and ecological disasters. We think about nuclear meltdowns like Chernobyl and Fukushima. We don't think about the environmental decay. You can't grow anything in the Chernobyl area right now. So that's something to think about. I'm going back to the chat to see old questions people had, because people always think I'm just answering questions, but I did my lecture, so I wasn't able to answer them. Someone asked if I was Ben Shapiro's brother. I am not. Is it because I'm talking fast? I'd like to think I'm better looking than him. I don't talk as fast as him. So sometimes I'm in a competition with him to see who can speak faster, though. He just doesn't know we're in that competition. Why are there so many crazy people on YouTube? You really should go back and look at the chat yesterday. And KJS, who has become a friendly neighborhood historian legend just for being a dog with one bone and never letting go no matter what. So let me see here. Just going through, yeah, we need to know more about Belgium, Flora. The Somme was an Anglo-French offensive, not a German attack. It was mostly, that's right. MIDI doctors, great to see you. I'm glad you're back. You're right, the Somme was an attack. And I don't know if it might be Verdun. He is the hero. Pétain, I was wrong. Thank you for the fact check. Philippe Pétain, the leader of Vichy France, was the hero of Verdun. The Somme was their offensive. It didn't go anywhere. Let me see here. And yes, all war heroes had a mother. So did all war criminals. They say the real reason why they killed Gaddafi is because they tried to get those Muslim countries together to make a currency backed by gold. I mean, that was a main reason for the opposition, the Pan-Arabic movement to Nasser in Egypt. So why can't you make dedicated videos on important event of history? I do make dedicated videos. Every Monday and Friday I have long-form videos, and every day I have multiple short-form videos dropping. Monday and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Joseph, thank you for subscribing. Let me see here. I'm caught up to the chat. My dog's name is Mohammed. Thanks for sharing that, I guess. Kind of disrespectful. Most people don't name their dog Jesus or something. So what would happen if you mixed all the radioactive minerals into one radioactive mineral? A superpower mineral that no one would want to touch or get new from. Abu, thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate that. And thank you for joining us from the wonderful land of India. We have people from India, we have people from Belgium, we have people from the UK, like my moderator, Harry. We've got people from the United States, we've got people from South Africa, we've got people from Canada. We have an incredible channel here, and thanks to you guys, it just gets better and better. So please like and subscribe and keep the energy going. Yes, Flanders was what it used to be. That's true. It was a French Holy Roman Empire land. I believe, Sam, I did. Sam, I think I did read your comment. And Loyalty, thank you for subbing. I appreciate that. Make sure to like too, get the algorithms going. And thank you. Actually, today it's nice. Yesterday was like all over. You don't want to see yesterday, John, because the truth of the matter is it was like 98 degrees. I got a window open, and I'm just heaving and just wiping my face off. It's a mess, but it was a fun chat until my phone overheated. And today we're a lot cooler. So, and Steve, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Why did you get a master's instead of PhD? You can't. It's not like either one. PhD takes longer. I've got to get back on that process. That's the next step for me. Sam, what did I miss? Might want to put the comments back in if I missed. Oh, when I was a child in 2008, I read from an old GK book, Belgium, the country will be destroyed. Was it a news or fake news? Belgium's doing just fine. Thank you for joining us from the Philippines. If touched by mineral, make me by mutant, mutant become smart, mutant become good mutant. Interesting, Liam. You have an interesting idea about how things work. And Foxhound, great to see you. So Sam, I'm trying to find all of your chats. I really am. I just see you and Flora playing chat tag. And thank you, Mark, for liking and subscribing. Let me see here. I think I've caught up to questions. So if you have a question about history and social studies here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, drop it in the chat, a topic you're interested in. I will do my best to answer it in a friendly, neighborly manner. Do you believe Oswald Spengler had any influence on modern political theory? I heard that name. I used to know who that is. Remind me who Spengler is. Is there any jobs there after doing graduation in history? You can become a teacher, you can become a writer, you can become an analyst or a commentator, you can become a librarian, you can become an archivist. There is a lot. It's not as much as, say, plumbing, another field, engineering. You get an engineering degree, and what can you do? It's incredible. But yeah, the STEM fields obviously usually offer more variegation. Technical schools offer variegation. History is a liberal art. It's an intellectual enterprise, and because of it, it can be limited, especially in pay range. But that's okay because I'm doing what I love. And yes, if you do what you love, you will work. I worked very hard and been really frustrated at myself, at this channel, at the chat, at everything through the more than a year that I've done this. But that doesn't mean that I give up, because I love it, because it fulfills something inside of me to read history, to write about history, to study history, to share my knowledge about history, all of that stuff, to teach history. So Elaine, great to see you. Thank you. It's always great to see your comments on the channel, by the way, Elaine. And thank you please show Owen. I would love to hear from a kid historian. Bring him on the channel from Games of Friday. That sounds fun. Nora, hello. I hear that they said the real person they killed Gaddafi is because he wanted to make Muslim gold currency. It might have been. I don't think that's the only reason. Most beautiful feminist brother ever? Okay, I don't consider myself an ist, but thank you. And the only place hiring is ancient Greece. That's definitely true, Niffin. Great to see you too, by the way. And I talked about ancient Greece and Rhea at the beginning, so that's kind of cool. So Mother's Day has its customs in the West, and it comes from the ancient Greeks and the Norse. Surprise, surprise. Foxhound. Spengler wrote The Fall of the West, which Nazism took from. He hated Nazism, but he was an imperialist. Nietzsche would have hated the Nazis too. The Nazis loved to call Schopenhauer, John Stuart Mill. All of these scholars of the 19th and 20th century that the Nazis either copied or borrowed from indirectly would have hated them. So you become indoctrinated into the liberal bias megaplex. I don't remember. Next time I go into the liberal bias megaplex, I'll have to ask them how indoctrinated we are. Can I get a job at a good organization after studying history or other arts? Absolutely. It takes a while. You just got to work at it. Abes Samad, I not know what you are saying. You're gonna have to write it. You're gonna have to spell it differently and write it in English, please. Do you know about Kashmir issue? Yes, I do. I've talked about it on the channel a lot. It looks like there's a ceasefire for now. I don't know how long that's going to last, but basically the Kashmir has an area that is governed by the Indians and an area governed by the Pakistanis. One is majority Muslim, one is majority Hindu, and that is a disputed land that the Hindus believe, or the Indians believe, belong to them, and the Pakistanis believe all of it belongs to them, and it's been the most disputed of the two countries ever since the partitioning in 1947. Have been to a famous grave. A few of them in the past. I'm trying to remember the last famous grave I was at, because I've been to a few. Interesting. Oscar Spengler. Yeah, the Nazis believed they were imperialists. They weren't the only imperialists around. I mean, Harry's an imperialist. He's a British imperialist here in the chat, and my great moderator, and he's a socialist, so not exactly something the Nazis would have liked. Although the Nazis themselves were socialists to some extent. Spengler famously wrote The Decline of the West, in which he posited a cyclical theory of civilizations. That's where I've heard of him before. Yes, the cyclical theory, civilizations rise and fall. Yes, I'm familiar with that guy. What is your favorite obscure story thing in history? What made you love history? You know, I get a little drink of water. I'm going to have to take you guys through a tour of my studio here, because I'm at 2% and I need to charge. But what made me love history? I mean, I was 6 or 7, and I went to the library, and I went into the nonfiction section, and I found these books on the U.S. presidents, and I just really liked the paintings and the art and the smell of those old books, and it ignited something in me, and I just decided to just devour that information. So that's the original route. What makes me continually love history is the way it's connected, the way it's interdependent, the ideas that move history along, the men and women that change the world and have no idea that they're doing it as they do it. The debates of history, what's called historiography. Like, was there a dark ages? Do the people in a golden age know they're living in a golden age? We talked about the Dutch golden age in the last live stream lecture. So stuff like that, Drewby. Great questions. Huge Spengler fan, fact sound. My best friend wrote his thesis on Spengler for his history degree. I would love to read that thesis. My senior and master's thesis I'm going to make available on my Substack. I need to redact my name. I don't share my personal information, but yes. KJS, great to see you again. Yet KJS, I know you're dying on that hill, but I do appreciate you being here and becoming a friendly neighborhood historian. Have you did your DNA ancestry? I have not, actually. I should probably do that. My own history might be interesting. Shika, hello to you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, and yes, Fox, I agree with you completely. Add to the conversation, just don't randomize. Have you been to Fort Morgan in Orange Beach, Alabama? No, but I should probably go. Why is Trump acting like the presidency gives him full legislative and executive authority that gives him the power to ignore the court system and the Constitution? He's not. Sometimes, I mean, the Kilmar Garcia issue, he certainly is. The Mahmoud Khalil issue, it certainly is. I think President Trump is basically acting under the auspices that America has been invaded by the migration crisis of the last 4 or 5 years, and he has the right to therefore act with wartime powers and use executive orders to do so. He's mobilized the U.S. military. Those things are not unconstitutional, but that's where the debate comes in. And he knows he's not going to win all of them. He's certainly not going to win the 14th Amendment one. That's nonsensical for him to think that. I talk about geopolitics and politics on the channel only in the sense of a historical impact and connection to history. So I think the Trump dictator thing really isn't going anywhere. And I think he's actually having a pretty good weekend. The China trade talks are back on the table. Russia and Ukraine are going to the table to talk. He's demanding a two-state solution in the Middle East, and he got the ceasefire between Pakistan and India. We'll see if that lasts. But this is, yeah, I understand that critique of him. The idea that he is a fascist dictator in the making is absolutely, I just don't see any historical basis, because we call anyone we don't like politically fascist. So, let me see here. You socialism, you capitalism. I mean, people bring different, I'm a capitalist, but people bring different ideas here, and I listen to them, and I understand them and their historical implications, and I am more than willing to learn and listen and vouch for them. I'm not I go into economics only because it's related to history and what I do. Do you also do history on the gods? And I'll talk about like Greek gods or Christian gods, like the gods before the gods. I'm not talking about Hinduism, the oldest. I'm not talking about the Maya. I talk about some of those ancient gods you might be thinking of. Some of the most ancient gods ever worshipped. Molech is an example of that. Marduk. I know a little bit about the Mesopotamian and gods and things like that. Have you ever been to a president's grave? Yes, a couple of them. And are you an armchair historian, or you love to visit different places around the world and know history? I like to do both. Do both. Do as much history as you possibly can. The best point in history is Jesus coming to save us from our sins. Trust in Jesus. William, I appreciate your fervor. Obviously, I understand the significance of Jesus in history. You can't ignore that. People who ignore that are just showing they are biased against religion. I am not biased towards religion when I say that Jesus is the most important and central figure in human history. I said nothing about dying for sins, and I said nothing about a resurrection. And yes, Riz, you miss Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Absolutely agree. I just did my live stream lecture, the first 30 minutes or so, on Mother's Day and its history. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch that. Yes, Harry, you are an interesting amalgamation, and I absolutely love it. And Drewby, I love the smells to it, and there's nothing like it. You can make a ton of connections between the decline of the West and current American issues, particularly with our recent wars in the Middle East. I agree. The U.S. overstretched it and overplayed its foreign policy hand. Because of the world wars, the U.S. felt that it could act with impunity. Then Vietnam and Iraq happened. Do you like fantasy? If yes, then I'm happy that someone likes fantasy. I get bullied. No one's getting bullied here for liking anything. I mean, KJS comes in here and just demands that Jesus is white, and I don't necessarily think it's true, but no one bullies him for that. So, are you a book collector? I am. I definitely am. Let me see here. What Jesus looked like means nothing. That's a common thing Christians say. Caucasus mountain range where Ark was found 120 miles north of Israel. Yes, and also Egypt and Africa are very close to Israel. So by that connection, Jesus should be black. Am I Jewish? No. Yes, and Jesus was Semitic. Thank you, Adam, for being historically accurate. Let me see here. Neocolonialism is interesting. I would have to read exactly what it's like. Sanaz, thank you for joining us from Iran. Are you in Iran currently, or did you come from Iran to somewhere else? See you. And hello, Edward. In what way does current events dictate historical inquiry as it pertains to Israel-Palestine? The Balfour Declaration, the Zionist movement, the persecution of the Jews in Eastern Europe, all are connected to Zionist claims. The settlement of that land and the conquest of it by Muslims and Arabic peoples, the Bedouinic associations with it, the settlement of the desert areas by the Palestinians, the fact that the Jews themselves were called Palestinians for a while when they lived in that land, the idea of it being called the Holy Land, these are all integral to Western Jewish and Muslim and Arabic understandings of the Levant and Israel in particular. Will an American pope ever make Trump's transition to pope easier or harder? Oh gosh, I don't think that Cardinal Prevost is a fan of Donald Trump based on his comments on immigration, though he is a registered Republican, probably because of issues like abortion, same-sex marriage, and stuff like that. I know this Trump, he likes to put a topic out there in a strong way that makes everybody talk about it. I think that's a good idea. He loves to put an idea out there. He loves to get his name out there. And then he loves to be over the top and exaggeratory and then pull back and say, well, wait a second. And it's actually an extremely good tactic when it comes to negotiations. It does have its limits with presidential power, and that's what Harry is concerned about. But Andrew Jackson used to do this. Andrew Jackson used to throw tantrums in his cabinet meetings, and then everybody would just kind of give in and walk away, and then he would turn to Van Buren, his closest advisor and the next president, and say to him, "They thought I was crazy." So he loved to put on the act. He loved to exaggerate and then pull back and be like, "Well, why?" And then almost gaslight, like Trump says something outrageously crazy, and then a week later it's like, "What? I didn't do that." And people in America and the West, to some extent too, are just used to this. This has been 10 years of this man doing stuff like that, and people are just kind of over it. He is signing executive orders to suspend acts of Congress so he can be more corrupt and not get charged with. It's insane. What orders does that do? And the executive orders are subject to revision, undoing, things like that. That's why codification through law is the strongest part of the American thing. That's why the founders had the legislative branch to check any president who makes an executive order. In history, how do you find out what is reality? It's basically perspective of historians and authors and their perspective. You synthesize as much as you can to find out the facts. History is an argument, And there are different, and really, it's not the facts of history that we disagree about, it's the meanings of those facts. Will you marry me? Just send me visa. Uh, sure, but I don't have a visa. I have a MasterCard. Remember, Europe is your creator, and Native people are the true Americans. The rest of you are immigrants. Thank you, J Mel. That's basically true. He is acting like a dictator. I wouldn't. Okay, fair. You didn't say fascist, but I don't necessarily find him acting like a dictator. No more so than FDR did. No more so than the British prime ministers do when they have a majority of the party, of a control of parliament. They basically can pass whatever they want and only have to worry about the House of Lords or the court stopping them. There's far less power to be held in a U.S. president to some extent when it comes to legislative codification than the British prime minister has. Do you suspect that Deborah Lipstadt hates Germans? I don't know who that is. You know a lot about things that I do not know, Zhang, so I appreciate you sharing that. I like how KJS talks about Jesus, and then when it comes to Trump, he's on that too. So, thank you, KJS, for being here. Noah, always asking great questions. Do you think a lot of small population countries have done well in economic development due to less population? It's easier. Yes, it's also easier for more libertarian, almost like policies that have rendered some success for places like Singapore. That's a very good example. Oh, Jika, I'm so sorry to hear that. You're welcome. You are valued, and you are seen, and you are welcome here anytime. I don't know what you're saying. Noah, why do you think Scandinavian countries have done well in human development? Isolation, the inability, very little militaristic building burdens, the ability to have extensive social programs and social democracy while also creating more economic freedoms. There's a lot of balance there. Let me see here. ASM gets some. Don't worry, you're safe here. Let me see. Kane, hello. Let me see. I'm just looking through the chat, guys. If I'm not responding, it's just because I'm looking and seeing if... Chica, we've got about 7,600 friendly neighborhood historians. So I will subscribe to you, you subscribe to me, we help each other. Do you think history is constantly moving rather than everything is inevitable? Yes. I don't believe in inevitability in history. I think that's a weak argument. And I think when we talk about, this was inevitable, it's only hindsight that makes anything inevitable. It is not inevitable, it's contingent in history. Did the Middle East wars benefit anyone more than Israel? It didn't benefit Israel that much either. It destabilized countries. It benefited people, any sort of idea of America. I think it did a benefit to countries that want to look at America's prestige and the Western prestige as declining and unnecessary. That's true, Harry. American politics can be boring. Just watch C-SPAN. Glitter, hello. I want political extremism to return to American politics. Believe me, Fox, it has. And if you don't think it has, then yeah. Please talk British colonial Indian history. The British, we just passed the anniversary of the Sepoy Mutiny. Originally, the British East India Company was able to colonize much of India through basically pitting rival lords called Rajas against each other. The Maratha Confederacy collapsed. The Mughal Empire lost most of its prestige, and nobody really cared about it anymore. And eventually, under the Sepoy Mutiny, the British took full control of India and got rid of the Mughal Empire completely in 1858. So, are you single? I don't answer personal questions. You guys can guess as much as you want. And people always either are telling me that I'm extremely ugly or extremely good looking, so I think I'm just meh. So yeah. Do you think Obama should not have got the Nobel Prize? I don't know why he got it. I think it was the Arab Spring, and I think it's a retrospective thing that did not work. Good intentions. Barack Obama had many great intentions and wanted to do many great things and got some of those things done. Don't necessarily mean you get a Nobel Prize. Negotiate peace between Russia and Japan, then you get your Nobel Prize. Shout out to Theodore Roosevelt. Let me see here. 1 second, that is with the consulting and approval of legislature, and we have a House of Lords that delays bills all the time. That's true. I'm not saying that it's not, but basically, if the Tories and the coalition government votes one way, the Tories get what they want as long as they have the majority. The other party usually plays watchdog. There are limits. There are limits to any political system. And our governments don't ignore our courts, and we don't have a system where you have courts for a reason, because the courts are a check on the power of the legislative branch. You don't have a separate third branch. Yes, Jews are indeed Middle Eastern. There are white Jews, Ashkenazis, but why do I have to say that on every channel, on every stream here? Does anyone think global warming is a good thing? I love Lady Gaga. I think she's a really interesting artist. Okay, a little random, but yes, no one. I don't think anyone thinks global warming is a good thing. Go back and watch my live stream from yesterday. I was sweating up a storm because of how hot it was. Let me see here. Foxy is not pro-reform. I'll say that. Let me see here. You talk Indian democracy. Well, right now there's a nationalist wing in India that has a lot of power, kind of a derivative of the British parliamentary system, and Prime Minister Modi really wants to return India to its ancient greatness. Okay, Myth, interesting. I'm trying to catch up to the chat. There's a lot of great questions here, a lot of great back and forth. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're just over an hour, and I'm going to wrap it up soon. And also in history class, we talked about the War of Chaldean, and I saw some videos about it, and it had so much blood in it. I don't know which war you're referring to. There might be another name I know it by. Oh, this is Politics, Religious History Live. I'm sorry, I'm just confused. No, Glitter, I'm answering questions. It's an Ask Me Anything about history, social studies, the humanities, and the like. And a lot of people, religion, geopolitics, economics, they all kind of go hand in hand with historical developments. And people want to ask a social scientist, which I am, his opinion about politics and religion. And I try to keep it in the framework of different cultural and historical frames. Harry, how do you feel about restrictions of speech? Okay, Harry, you're getting your own live stream Q&A going on. I love it. Jack, that's a lot less than the previous administration had killed in the Iraq War. And I understand there's not a lot of attention is given to a lot of the things that the U.S. did under Barack Obama in the Middle East that wasn't quite kosher, no pun intended. Do you think Jews' privilege is the reason why community like Muslims did not rise, also Jews exploit? What do you mean Muslims did not rise? Muslims are the fastest growing religion in the world. Muslims have never had a problem with rising and expanding their power and influence in a society. Let me see here. Arabs are invaders, not native Middle Easterners. That's not true, Jack. Some of them are, some of them are not. When you think of them spreading to places like Persia, Anatolia, Egypt, and North Africa, yes, they were conquerors. That was the Muslim century of conflict, the Rashdun and Umayyad caliphates. Do you think globally Islam has problem with every country, like they cannot live happily? There is a bad track record. There are plenty of places where Muslims live very peacefully, and look at Jews in the Middle Ages. Look at Maimonides. He would have much rather lived under the Muslims than the Christians. Religions go through periods of almost like it's where it's really aggressive, assertive, and questionable, some of its actions. And I think Islam might be living through that right now. The Islamic Golden Age, the successes of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 9th and 10th centuries, the Middle East was the place to live right then, not necessarily Europe. So, but yes, there have been tensions all throughout. And Islam and how it deals with other religions has always been a tension, be it Christians, Jews, or Hindus. And by the way, the India-Pakistan thing is only happening because of that, because the British gave Muslim majority Pakistan its independence from India, which is Hindu majority. But there are tons of Muslims in India, and there are tons of Hindus in Pakistan. So the tensions continue. Thank you for liking and subscribing. I think India is on the rise. It's one of the BRICS countries. It's one of the growing countries which wants to develop its own currency. India has been exploited by colonialism for centuries, and that has kept it from becoming extraordinarily wealthy. It's one of the poorer countries in the world, but the expansion of the global economy has led India out of poverty at a massive scale in the last 30 years. Okay, on the subject, no one is white. If you hold up a white napkin on a piece of paper, your skin, you're not the exact same color, so we're not white, maybe peach or something. Yeah, we're light-skinned. White people would be, I'm saying we're because guess what, I'm white. But a lot of, I'm not trying to be insensitive by saying this, not a lot of black people are literally black. And, a lot of people who were called yellow, from Asia are not exactly yellow. It's just the closest color that you can guess, and it's just a way to divide people. And Glitter, great point. What is your favorite subject? Obviously, history and social studies. Yeah, King, no, don't be mean to her. Or him, or whoever Glitter is. But thank you for bringing that. You talk about I did my best to talk about it. It's not open for interpretation or law. Okay. What conspiracy theories do you think are true? Kennedy was killed by the CIA. MLK was also killed by the CIA. I think those are two that we're seeing more and more evidence that they're true. I'm an American. I do not say exactly where I'm from in America, but I've had people guess that I'm Russian, South African, Canadian. I appreciate all that. I take it as a compliment. And Summer Kid, it's great to see you again, by the way. Let me see. Marcos, hello. What do you think about the Jews' constant struggle? I think that the Jews have struggled because they haven't had a land, and the depossession by the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans have only added to a need for resilience and resistance and survival that Jews have felt for an extremely long time, culturally, ethnically, and now religiously. And that is the feeling right now. The Israeli government to this day believes, even if it's wrong to some extent, and I think it is slightly wrong, that they are in danger constantly of being destroyed, and they have nowhere else to go. That part is correct. Let me see here. Let me see. Thinking about something is not open for interpretation. Very naive. Very true. That's very true, Jock. Yes, that's true. Watkins, India isn't exactly there, but it has made impressive gains. Okay, Glitter. I'm sorry. I was not trying to misgender anyone. Stephen, that's not true. Well, he might have been, but Oswald, the chances of Oswald getting off those rounds, no. And it used to be a conspiracy theory. I used to think it was. Now it seems like it's a mainstream theory, and now it's almost just as reasonable to believe Kennedy was killed by someone else. So, and wow, this is big. Just flashed on my screen. The last living hostages will be released by Hamas. Wow, this weekend the foreign policy stuff is crazy. You heard it here, folks. I would love to visit the Taj Mahal, the wonderful tomb of Shah Jahan's wife. Rent is rent. Jeez, it's not fun. Let me see here. I think Netanyahu has worn out his welcome in many ways, but I think that he has a different take. Many of the Israeli prime ministers in the past, Ben Gurion, Golda Meir, were willing to fight, and Netanyahu is certainly willing to fight, but they were also willing to deal. I don't see him. I think that he is tired of constant attacks. He is tired of Muslim countries surrounding him, supporting the radical Islamic terrorists, Hamas and the PA, who don't want Israel to exist. And I think that his basic attitude is he doesn't care what he has to do, just get them out. And if Israel has to take all the land, Israel has to take all the land. What they've tried and it's not working. And to some extent, that is correct. I don't know if that reaction is necessarily correct. Let me see here. Israel are mostly dual citizens. There's a lot of that in Israel, to be sure. The main argument for the CIA killing Kennedy, which I think might be a persuasive one, is that his mishandling of the Bay of Pigs and his unwillingness to go into Vietnam to fight communism destabilized, did not give them the power and influence that they wanted. Let me see here. Okay, I finally caught up to everything. Problem is, whenever Palestinian refugees move into, even if they integrate in their host society, there is unfortunately a spike of anti-Semitic attacks, which doesn't help the cause. Yes, it's true. The Palestinians have not done themselves any favors in many of these things, but either officially and especially through the actions of people like Hamas. The reason the Egyptians shut their border at Rafah and built a wall to stop them from getting in when Israel was going to attack the southern part of Gaza is because the Egyptian government was worried about the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas teaming up to overthrow their government. The Jordanians also do not want them. The Lebanese do not want them. There are a lot of problems with with Hamas and fear of Palestinian terrorism. I don't think he was killed by the driver. I think that one would have been more obvious, and we would have figured that out a lot sooner. Shah. My favorite interpretation of Kennedy's assassination was the episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. I'll have to go back and look at that. I don't know Black September in Jordan, but I've heard about that. And Jordan has helped Israel fight Hamas, interestingly enough. And thank you for joining us from Kurdistan. Let me see here. How do you perceive a growing nation-first policy of major nations that is growing against globalization? It's a reaction from the right towards what they believe is a leftward shift, and reactions on the right can get very extreme in countries that are not already conservative. So the reactions on the right in Britain and Germany are not what they are in the United States and Canada. I mean, the AFD is far more extreme than Donald Trump when it comes to migration. Yeah, the umbrella, there's a lot of questions, the grassy knoll, there's a lot of this that we just don't No. Let me see. How do you perceive? So concepts. I answered that. Sorry. Whose land is Gaza, though? Who has a right to the land historically? I think that they could figure out a way to share the land. The Palestinians took over Gaza in 2005. Before then, the Israelis had it after they took it from the Egyptians in the 60s. Do you think there has to be from the Egyptians? Yeah. Do you think there has to be a psychological study of how Palestinians are alive? Yes, they've been a surviving people. They've been a people who have a lot of odds against them. So in some ways, they are similar to the Israelis to some extent. Let's talk about the war of the bucket, whatever. Yes. Yep. There you go, Fox. So you know what I'm talking about. And the AFD, a lot of Germans think that's why AFD is on the rise. Religion and evolution are not mutually exclusive. So anyways, I've gone over 10 by 10 minutes. We did 27 minutes. We talked about Mother's Day and Father's Day a little bit, the history there. Hope everyone has a wonderful Mother's Day. I won't take anyone away from their mothers anymore. Go and celebrate their days and everything. Do have a great time with that. Thank you so much for joining us at the Friendly Neighbor History Channel. We had a fun 40-minute Q&A. Ask me anything about history and social studies. We will be back doing this Friday and Saturday of next week at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then our Sunday lecture at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be about the impact of the Protestant Reformation on Western Europe and the United States and America, Canada, But yes, what do you want to see globally before dying? Peace in the Middle East. That would be good. But yes, yes, so thank you everybody for joining. Oh, friendly history. Do you at least admit our Prime Minister does not have the same authority to act on his own? Yes, he does. That's true. Harry, I agree with you there. I mean, I'm not trying to defend Donald Trump. I do not defend him. I criticize him constantly. My issue is trying to use that as a way to find flaws in the American system that are not necessarily fair, or saying that Donald Trump is the only president to ever act like this. That's a historical pet peeve of mine. So, yeah, Fox, unfortunately, I'm worried that I might. But yes. Anyways, everybody, have a great week. Thank you, Harry, for that last great question. I hope everybody takes care and joins us again. Long-form videos, Mondays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Really appreciate everyone. I think I'll make tomorrow's about Mother's Day, just kind of codify everything I have here. So please check us out and join us for that. It'll be really enjoyable. Yeah, the court and the legislature are on their way to shutting him down. I've shut him down on many occasions. Look at the Muslim ban. That one did not stick. Donald Trump knows when he oversteps it. He doesn't care, though, is the problem. Yes, somewhat, Harry. It's a cart and horse argument. So I understand where you're coming from, but I'm obviously an American. So, anyways, everyone, take care. Have a great. Okay. Yes, and that is why you have Congress supposedly acting and the courts supposedly acting unbiasedly. It's not like these checks and balances do not exist in the American system. I think your complaint is with the American system, not necessarily how Donald Trump is doing with it. So, all right, take care. Sorry, Harry's bringing up some great stuff, and I actually agree with a lot of what he's saying. Not surprisingly, Harry usually is right about a lot of what he says. I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you back here again next Friday, and then we have Saturday and Sunday. And check out the long-form, short-form content, and like the live, subscribe for more. Have a great one, and remember, love history. President can still act without legislature. Yes, that's because it's based on George Washington, who was the general of the American Revolution. It's a militaristic position. It's an action position. That's what the founders intended. Okay, sorry. Anyways, take care. Love history. Goodbye, everyone.